Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Rabbi.
This week's Parshas Terumah talks about giving a donation for the building the tabernacle, the traveling temple in the desert. Later, that was transformed in being the Beis Hamikdash, the house of glory, the temple at Yerushalayim in Jerusalem, when the Jewish people eventually came to Eretz Yisrael, and the right time, came about for them to build the temple. So all the different details that are in the Mishkan are also applied to the Beis Hamikdash. So there is an interesting story. In the Beis Hamikdash itself, before we just say the story, there is Vasisa Shulchan or Menorah, the different, very important furniture pieces, we would call it, in the Beis Hamikdash, that are like very, very important to the status of the Beis Hamikdash. For example, the Aron, the Ark. The Ark had in it the two luchos, the two sets of tablets, plus the Torah. That was in the Holy of Holies, and nobody could touch that, and that was only the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, would go in on Yom Kippur into the Holy of Holies. Then you had something called the Shulchan, the showbread table, where they had the breads, and you also had the menorah, the candelabra, that the Kohen would light every single day. The breads would be switched once a week, and whoever was working as the Kohenim of that week, they would get the ones to have part of the bread. So there was once a story in the times of the Maggid the Mezrich, the second Hasidic great master. He was a man, he was very, very wealthy, and he was also a very learned person, and he became a follower of the Maggid. He was very inspired of the teachings of the Hasidic teachers on the Maggid, and he became a follower. And at a certain point, his whole mazel, his luck turned to the bad, and he lost everything he had. He became a poor man. So he was dumbfounded and broken, and he came to the Maggid and he says, Lama asa Hashem kazais, what did God do to me? What happened? What's going on? So the Maggid explained to him with a hint. He says like this, there's a quote in our sages that the Gemara in Baba Basra, Daf Chav Hey, page 25a, says like this: when a person prays, there's a little tip over there. If you want to be smart, you're praying for wisdom. When you pray, tip a little bit to the right. So when you're praying, instead of staying Mizrach straight, you're staying straight, but a little bit to the right, and that's like the door, that's a channel to ask for wisdom. If somebody wants wealth, so then tip a little bit to the left. Why? What's the difference between the right and the left? Because in the Beis Hamikdash, to the right was the menorah. So menorah represents the light, wisdom, Torah. And to the left was the shulchan, was this bread, was this table with all the breads. Bread is sustenance. So if you want to connect to that, you move to the left. That's why we have the menorah here on the right when we light the candles, the menorah on Hanukkah, because in the Beis Hamikdash was on the right side. So this is a different concept. So he says, so the Maggid says, what happens if the person wants both? He wants to be smart and he wants to be rich. What do you do? But you got to connect with those both sides. So he says, when a person makes himself humble, he doesn't have ego, he's totally devoted to Hashem, so then you don't take up place. You're not here to not to be there. So then in a sense you connect to everything. So the Maggid was telling him in a nice way that you gotta drop your ego, you gotta totally nullify yourself to Hashem, up your game, and then you'll be a vessel for everything. But this is something for us also. Besides, if you're going, turn to the right, turn to the left, the idea is that when you're davening, you want to open yourself up, you want to be humble, you want to connect to Hashem. And with that, that's the best vessel to be able to be to draw down all the blessings. May we all be blessed with the ultimate blessing of Mashiach B'Karam Mamish. Amen.